Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at our fifth and last writing argument passage. The title of it is Poetry as a Profession. As always, we're going to be going through all 11 questions on this passage. We're going to read the entire passage so that you get an idea of how to go about doing these writing argument passages and are ready to ace the SAT writing and language section. Let's get started. And if you like these videos or find them informative, please be sure to like and subscribe. We have, in an increasingly streamlined, technological, and competitive world of professional employment, a career in writing poetry may seem like an impractical choice. While the challenge of developing a professional writing career cannot be denied, aspiring poets can look to their successful 20th and 21st century counterparts for models of sustainable career paths. All right, so we're said perspiring is underlined. It doesn't seem like perspiring is the right word. Let's see what else we have. We have respiring, inspiring, and aspiring. So it seems like poets, people who want to be poets, essentially, right, to their counterparts who like actually succeeded. So people who want to be poets. But which one says want to be poets? That's going to be aspiring. People who aspire to be a poet. Those are the aspiring poets. That's what the question's saying. And let's move on to our next question. So our question is, these examples demonstrate that one of the best ways to be a poet are to be many other things as well. All right. So it says the best way. These examples demonstrate that one of the best ways. So we're talking about one of the best ways here, right? This is our subject, one of the best ways. Now that's one, that's singular. So we want this to also be singular, but R is plural. R is plural, were is plural, and have been, well, have been is a past tense verb, right? So one of the best ways to be a poet, have been to be, well, we're talking about in the present tense, not the past tense, so this is also incorrect. So our answer is, which is both singular and in the present tense, as we want it. Let's keep going. Is to be many other things as well. When writing computer code, an individual is cultivating the same precision and attention to detail that is required to write poetry. Which choice best establishes the reason for providing support of the passage's main argument? So I'm guessing that what they're trying to say is that having another career along with poetry provides some kind of inspiration or some kind of help to help support poets, right? So let's see what our answer choice is. So we know that A is incorrect, so that doesn't really hit it. B, supplemental career, provides the necessary financial support for poets to support themselves in today's competitive economy. Well, it does talk about supporting them, but it doesn't talk about anything about, it doesn't say anything about being inspired or being helped by it. So we're going to cross that one out too. Choice C seems to be pretty good. It says, in addition to offering financial support, supplemental careers can provide artistic inspiration and a valuable breadth of experience. It helps people both financially and inspirationally. So that seems like our answer. And the last one says individuals can learn that poetry is better considered a hobby than a career with an alternative career. That's not what the passage is trying to say. That's incorrect. Let's move on to our next question. Many successful contemporary poets pursue other forms of employment, considering these jobs not as obstacles, but instead of sources of inspiration. So this is a conventional expression kind of idea. Or it's what we usually say when we're trying to contrast this. We usually say something like, considering these jobs not as obstacles, but rather as sources of inspiration. So we have but rather as sources of inspiration, and that's our answer. Right? We can't say considering these jobs not as obstacles, but instead of sources of inspiration, right? Because source of inspiration part doesn't fit with the but instead. Same thing happens with choice B with the but instead as sources of inspiration, or simply just considering these jobs not as obstacles instead as sources of inspiration. And then the and to completely misses the point, right? This is this part has a conflict with this part, and the and does not say anything about that, so that's why A is incorrect. I mean, D is incorrect, and is incorrect, and we can move on to the next question. All right, down here, W.S.D. Piero, an Italian-American poet, also works as a translator. When discussing the relationship between translation and poetry, he identified them both as a quest for recognitions, noting that a translation needs a cultural entourage. Well, that doesn't really have anything to do with what the passage is trying to say, right? They're trying to say the usefulness of translation to the process of writing poetry. So this doesn't say that. Translator has to encounter the worst people. No. Trying to earn my living as a writer and translator? No. and the process of translation has helped me immensely. That directly says that it helps, so that's our answer. Move on to the next question. The supplemental career does not even need to be directly related to writing in order to provide valuable inspiration. Consider, for example, William Carlos Williams, who worked as a physician for over 40 years. Alright, so we have consider, for example, comma. Right, it has to have that comma. So since this one doesn't have a comma, we can get rid of that one. And then we have, so consider, comma, for example, comma, William Carlos Williams. And then we have a comma, a semicolon, or nothing in there. Well, let's see. Let's see what we have here. So this is kind of an introductory phrase. Right, so this is going to have a comma to separate this part from the rest. It's going to have a comma, and our answer is going to be choice D. Let's keep going. Although they provide varying levels of financial support, supplemental careers also broaden the experience of individuals, and this breadth inevitably shapes their work. So it seems that here they want to talk about something that says helps financially plus helps in experience. Right, so let's see. So we can see that choice B says in addition to providing a source of inspiration, right? So it says provides a source of inspiration, and then it adds on to that by saying the experience part. So that seems like our answer. Right, so although they provide varying levels of financial support, does not talk about the inspiration. Considering the time constraints they impose is mainly negative connotation, that's not what we're going for. Regardless of the relationship between translation and poetry, translation is not the main focus of the passage, so that, or any of the paragraphs, so that's incorrect. Then we can look to question number 8. For instance, the famous poet Maya Angelou pursued diverse career paths as a prose writer, producing, civil rights activist, and more. So it seems like there should be prose writer, someone who writes prose, someone who produces, and someone who is a civil rights activist. This would be prose writer, producer, and civil rights activist. Prose writer, producer, civil rights activist. Choice C. Right? This is a kind of parallel structure kind of problem where they all have to be in the same tense. And usually that means they end in the same word, right? So they end in the same ending. So here you have ER, so that's going to be the right parallel structure. And we can move on to the next question. Alright, then we have all the way down here, Lucy Tapahanzo, the current poet laureate of the Navajo Nation, is committed to serving her community on local, state, and national levels. Well, you're going to separate the state and national levels with a comma, so it's going to be either D or A. So we can get rid of the ones that don't separate them with commas. And then we either have a comma or a semicolon here. So let's see, so this part, right, we have a strong sense of cultural identity pervades her work. Let's see, so the subject is a strong sense of cultural identity, the verb is pervades, and the direct object is her work. So this is going to be an independent clause. So we separate an independent clause using a semicolon. So we're going to use the semicolon, not the comma, and we can move on to the next question. Poetry composition is neither an easy nor an impossible career. It simply requires hard work, dedication, and the commitment to writing above all else. Yet of all possible careers, writing poetry is perhaps one of the most valuable in our contemporary context. While coding languages and technology turn over with ever-increasing greater frequency, the words of Homer and Shakespeare remain. Even when an entire culture disappears, writing is one of the few things that persists. So I read the rest of that paragraph to kind of give us an idea of what the end of the passage is trying to say. Right? So let's see. Are we going to delete the sentence or not? Well, the sentence seems to provide a connection between why the poetry is something that's unique. It's something different from the coding languages and technology, right? And it is crucial. So we're not going to take that one out. We're going to leave it there, right? And we can see from justifications, it either provides a smooth transition about the unique nature of poetry, or the evidence about central claim while writing poetry is so important. It doesn't really say why writing poetry is important, it just says that it's extremely unique and it is persistent. And we have that transition here, so our answer is choice C. Let's move on to the next question. While coding languages and technology turn over with ever-increasing greater frequency, the words of Homer and Shakespeare remain. Even when an entire culture disappears, writing is one of the few things that persists. This is going to be a precision and concision question. So here we have ever-increasing and greater. It says the same thing. Ever-increasing and greater say the same thing. That's not concise enough. Ever-increasing frequency and greater prevalence. Frequency and prevalence, the same thing. That's going to get knocked out. Repetitive, frequency and prevalence, same thing, that's out. Ever increasing frequency, we have one adjective to describe each topic here, one for each of the two topics, and that's going to be our most concise version, so that is going to be our answer. That is it for this writing argument passage. I hope you join me next time when we start looking at our informative writing passages, our second topic of writing passages. I'll see you then.